The girl shed painful tears, but the man beside her happily put them into his mouth. After all, the salt and protein contained in tears are extremely precious in the doomsday wasteland world. In order to make the girl produce more tears, he ordered to intensify the torture of the girl's mother until she completely lost her life. Back at the camp, they checked the girl's whole body and found that she was not affected by radiation at all, and her physical indicators were surprisingly healthy. This means that she was born in a place rich in resources. Maybe the legendary oasis really exists. The man tried to ask the girl about the direction of the oasis, but the girl knew his cruelty very well and refused to say a word. There was no other way, so the man had to gather his motorcycle troops and forcibly embark on a journey to find an oasis. Although the oasis where the girl lived was not found, they accidentally discovered a castle. It is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, with rich green plants on the top. Obviously, there are sufficient water resources here. The man led the troops to surround the castle, took out the microphone, and gave a speech. As long as the people in the castle surrendered, he would liberate the enslaved people here and give them back twice the water resources. But the man could never imagine what kind of ruthless character he had provoked. The ruler of the castle was not dead, and old Joe stood up. Facing such an invader, he said, "Step just calmly, let the military advisor beside him speak." The military advisor asked them to choose a soldier with a disdainful look, and after the selection, they could start formal negotiations. So Thor asked his men to randomly select a warboy. The boy who was selected was extremely excited. He sprayed the silver stimulant on his mouth and then picked up 2 explosive sticks. He actually killed the motorcycle troop members directly with a suicide attack. The military advisor said that they still had 972 devout warriors who were ready to sacrifice their lives for old Joe at any time. It was simply a fantasy to want to take down the castle. After talking about the war, the boy directly picked up the explosive stick and launched an attack on the bottom. Faced with such a strong offensive, the motorcycle troop was beaten without any ability to fight back, and Thor had to flee with the girl. Although the troops suffered heavy losses, Thor did not give up. He observed that every 10 days, old Joe would send a truck to the nearby gasoline town, and the truck was loaded with abundant water and stone. After exchanging enough gasoline with Gasoline Town, they will return. They calculated the time when the truck would arrive again, and directly sent a motorcycle team to intercept the truck halfway. The water and food they got this time were enough for them to use for several months. However, Thor was not content with this. He grabbed the white clay on the ground, added a little gasoline, stirred it evenly, and then smeared it all over his men. That's right, he wanted to disguise his men as war boys, and then sneak into Gasoline Town to occupy it. The mayor looked at the truck coming from a distance, and always felt that something was wrong. "Ah, I can't get down." Realizing that he might be exposed, Thor took up his bow and arrow and shot his men to death. Seeing that the people who came were indeed the war boys who were willing to sacrifice for old Joe, the mayor decided to support them, so he ordered his men to open the gate, led the truck in, and successfully blocked the motorcycle troops on the side with fire. Little did he know that Thor's men had already hidden in the truck. They climbed up the tower directly, killed the gatekeeper, and ordered them to open the gate. At this time, a large number of motorcycle troops were already coming in the distance. The mayor then realized that he had fallen into a trap. Now Gasoline Town was successfully taken into Thor's possession. With the capital for negotiation, he came to old Joe's base and told him that as long as he gave him double the water and food, he could continue to supply him with gasoline. Otherwise he would directly blow up Gasoline Town and let everyone suffer. Old Joe disdained his words, but was very interested in the little girl next to him. In the end times, there are such perfect children. Old Joe excitedly proposed a trade condition, as long as the little girl stayed in the castle and grew up to be his concubine. You can exchange 1.5 times the supplies with Thor for gasoline. After all, Joe's son is either mentally retarded or deformed. What he wants most now is to have a healthy child with a perfect and healthy woman. Although Thor was a little reluctant, he finally agreed to the deal. In order to prevent the girl from escaping, his hair was woven with bells and then locked in a secret room. Here are more than a dozen supermodel concubines of Joe, waiting for her to give birth to a baby. But the children born either have 3 hands or 6 legs. The girl knew that she had to escape from this place, so she resolutely picked up a blade, cut off her hair, and then used a candle to stick them on the headscarf in 1.1 points. At midnight, old Joe's son really came to the room again and grabbed him out. He carefully observed the girl's arm and found a map on it. The girl hurriedly shook her hair and used the bell inside to attract the other party's attention. Sure enough, the big guy played with her hair. The girl was quick-witted and ran away madly, and then smeared the black mud on the roadside. When the big guy chased the girl to the cliff, he found that the girl had disappeared. It was impossible that she had jumped down. While thinking about it, someone nearby called him and wondered what he was looking for here in the middle of the night. Because he was afraid of being discovered and taking the girl away privately, he quickly lied that he just came out to get some fresh air, and then took the opportunity to throw away the hair. Little did they know that the girl was hiding under the pipe. In this way, she persisted until the big guy left and until dawn. Because the castle was heavily guarded, she had not been able to find a way to leave, so she had to hide here as a civilian. Relying on her thin body and agile skills, Amy was promoted to a mechanic. The new truck has been built, and she will follow the large force to the gasoline town to exchange for resources. Little did they know that the road was in danger at the moment. When the lurking motorcycle troops saw the truck approaching, they drifted directly on the spot, rolling up a gust of yellow sand. After the truck passed by, they lost sight in an instant, and suddenly a large number of the motorcycles surrounded them, and a war was about to break out. They carried parachutes and flew into the air on high-speed motorcycles. Using their height advantage, they continuously bombed the truck with explosive sticks. The warboy on top was instantly blown away, and the escort vehicle next to it immediately launched a counterattack, blowing up the motorcyclist and taking away 2 enemies. The burning warboy grabbed the enemy's rope and sprayed him with stimulants and died together with him. The motorcycle rolled into the roof, almost took Amy away. After she finally got free, the engine was torn off again. The co-pilot had to climb down to repair it. Soon, the motorcycle troops launched a second wave of attack. They set up parachutes and accurately dropped various incendiary bombs. One of the flames burned the bearded man. At the moment of losing his life, he handed the engine pipe to Amy. The difficult task would be completed by him. The motorcycle driver installed a bomb. Amy rushed forward to dismantle it, but her tracks were discovered by the enemy, who grabbed her legs. In the critical moment, Warboy quickly used his mechanical arm to provide support. Amy cut the fuse with a pair of scissors and successfully dismantled the bomb. Then she climbed to the engine and replaced the bearded man to complete the task of repairing the engine. At this time, several enemies climbed onto the car. In order to get rid of them, the driver had to shake the car left and right. The degree of bumps almost made Amy fall off the wheels. As the enemies kept approaching, the driver had to draw his pistol to fight. Fortunately, the engine had been repaired. Facing the vehicle blocking the front, the driver accelerated and knocked it away. Amy came back from under the car and cooperated perfectly with the driver to kill the nearby enemies. However, the enemy had already sent out the King Bomb airship motorcycle to bomb the truck with flames in the air. Amy walked forward angrily and used the mechanical arm. The motorcycle gang leader Niu Mo attacked and fired a series of machine guns in the air. The firepower was fierce and the two were helpless. The opponent used a blower to float himself in the air. Amy saw this and immediately thought of a way to restrain him. She used the hook to lock the enemy accurately, then turned on the button and kept pulling him towards the truck. While the enemy was reloading, she ran to the rear of the truck and started a battle of iron balls. After a big battle, only 2 people survived. Amy walked forward calmly and directly put a pistol to the driver's head. After years of lurking, she finally had a chance to escape. The old man is still the wisest. The driver ignored him and drove away. Amy realized that even if she escaped from the castle, she could not survive in this apocalypse on her own. As she walked, she heard a voice behind her. The driver slowly walked forward and expressed his admiration. In this battle, he lost all his team members, but at the same time he discovered Amy's potential. He was willing to pass on all his life's learning to Amy, and when he was strong enough, maybe he could go anywhere he wanted. In this way, Amy became the driver's co-pilot and him. He transports all kinds of goods. After a few years, Amy has mastered a lot of skills. However, when they were transporting resources to Gasoline Town this time, they saw Thor personally coming down to greet them. Seeing her former enemy, Amy reached out to kill him, but lost the opportunity when she hesitated. It turned out that Gasoline Town was already in an energy crisis at this time. He asked the immortal old Joe to increase the supplies delivered each time. Due to Thor's poor management, the people here not only went hungry every day, but also had no work to do. People's emotions have reached the peak of anger. They didn't care and directly robbed the water and food brought by the truck like crazy. Seeing that the situation was out of control, the driver quickly fled with the truck. Although they successfully escaped from Gasoline Town, they not only lost a lot of food, but also failed to bring back a drop of gasoline. Old Joe was very angry. The consequences were serious. It seemed that Gasoline Town could no longer be managed by Thor. He ordered Jack and Amy to go to Bullet Farm tomorrow to exchange for enough ammunition, and then directly attack Gasoline Town to take it back. However, when they arrived at Bullet Farm, they found it unusually quiet. There was not even a single person in the huge field. It was not until a dog appeared with a human leg in its mouth that they realized the big snake. Unexpectedly, Thor took the lead and led the army to capture this place. Bullet Farm is equivalent to seizing the arsenal, which is equivalent to taking the initiative. Amy and Jack were separated by the iron gate, but fortunately they could cover each other and help each other to deal with the approaching enemies. But the enemy drove a tank and directly activated the flamethrower on it. Jack saved Amy. Sitting on the truck again, he reversed and knocked it over. Amy successfully returned to the car outside and honked the horn to urge Jack to run. But looking at the support coming from the front, Jack knew that they would be in danger if they drove away in a small car. So he fired a signal flare decisively, decided to sacrifice himself, and signaled Amy to leave. Jack rushed frantically and knocked over several tanks. Amy heard the sound of fighting behind her and knew that she could not leave like this. He reversed back to the gate, picked up the sniper rifle and joined the battlefield. A man in the camera was about to fire a rocket launcher, and Amy fired the bullet accurately and successfully. Jack had a chance to survive, and the red cape Amy had seen just now was obviously his enemy, Thor. Amy aimed at the spot in advance and was ready to kill the guy in seconds when he showed up, but she didn't expect that this guy was extremely insidious and cunning. Jack was extremely angry when he saw this. He rammed the truck into the pillar, intending to die with Thor, but unexpectedly, Amy was still alive in the wasteland. He picked up a motorcycle and rushed to Jack as fast as possible to pick him up. After turning the area upside down, they finally managed to escape from the bullet farm. However, Thor was completely enraged. He rode an off-road vehicle and broke through the gate to catch up. Relying on the advantage of speed, the vehicle kept approaching Amy. Jack wanted to shoot, but was shot through the arm. Amy hurried to support, but unexpectedly her left hand was accelerated by the opponent's tire on the spot, and Thor crushed the car with a huge wheel. Finally, he successfully stopped the two people who were escaping. Seeing that they were still breathing, Thor was very happy. He had to teach these two ungrateful guys a lesson. He tied Jack to the back of the car and kept circling him, trying to tire him to death. Amy had her right hand hung up and had to watch all this happen. The motorcycle raised waves of yellow dust, and Thor sat in the middle and enjoyed it all quietly. When the sun was almost setting, Thor decided to kill Amy and go home for dinner, but he took a closer look. He actually took advantage of everyone's inattention and tore off his arm and ran away. When Amy returned to the castle in a panic, Thor had already created a billowing smoke in Gasoline Town. It was obvious that he wanted to lure Old Joe to bring his troops there, and then take the opportunity to sneak attack the castle and occupy it. Seeing Amy's broken arm, Old Joe believed him, so he decided to play along with him, creating the illusion that Thor's large army went to Gasoline Town, and then sent a large army to ambush in the castle, and directly wiped out the enemy in one fell swoop. The war was imminent. After a fierce battle, Thor was finally defeated miserably. He lost both Bullet Farm and Gasoline Town and was driven to the wasteland, becoming a biker gang again. However, in Amy's opinion, Thor's survival was never allowed. He installed a mechanical arm on his left hand, hid the seeds left by his mother in his mouth, cut his hair again, and embarked on his ultimate journey of revenge. Thor was fleeing with his men, but found that several soldiers behind him suddenly fell to the ground. Realizing that danger was coming, he quickly used a telescope to observe the distance. Sure enough, there was a guy approaching him. No matter who the other party was, it was obvious that he was coming for Thor. He asked his men to split into 3 groups to distract the enemy. Seeing this, Amy chose to chase Thor's chariot without hesitation, but what he didn't know was that the man wearing Thor's cape was actually his men. It was obviously a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. However, even so, Amy played a funeral song for him without hesitation. Amy turned around and went to the top of the mountain, using a sniper rifle to observe the other 2 motorcycles. One of them mistakenly entered the cavemen's territory and was killed by them in a second. Zooming in, he was not Thor. This meant there was only one target left. A sandstorm appeared in front of Thor. He knew that turning back would lead to death, so he rushed in directly. When he woke up again, he found that the surroundings were extremely quiet. But when he was about to drink water, he found that someone had cut a hole in the kettle. Looking back, he saw that the grappling hook of the chariot was pointed straight at him. Faced with such a situation, he had no choice but to kneel down and surrender completely. Amy walked forward calmly, then slowly took off her mask and beat Thor violently. But it was obvious that such physical pain could not relieve her hatred. In order to avenge her mother and Jack, Amy chose the most relieving method, which was to plant the seeds left by her mother directly with Thor, and use its nutrients to nourish the peach tree. Letting it live in endless pain is the best punishment for the evildoer.